was late. He was part of the procession upstairs on the 6th floor. That is understandable. And 2-3 of the members will be online. And just even if you see me alone, I'm not alone. My others is online and they're watching and they know what's going on in here. And they will be able to ask their questions and that sort of thing. But let me say to you, I apologize for the change in time as well. But the death of our chief whip throw us completely upside down. I think you can understand that. So I'm not going to waste your time and so on. And may I ask you, look, SASSA, the department, who else? You're always very, very keen to come and present and to talk to us. It's a measure of accountability. You would love to do that, then you know you account. But today, let us not drawn out the proceedings for far, far too long. We understand, I understand, I check with the secretariat, we understand. Do your thing in your 15, 20 minutes time, that sort of thing, so that we don't sit here till 5, 6 o'clock. Yeah, and there's another presenter online as well. So be precise. I'm not saying you will drawn out proceedings, but you get presenters, an hour is passed and they just continue talking and talking. And it's so bad in saying to people, shorten it a bit. I've done it before. Unfortunately, I had to do it because some people got a long voice and that sort of thing. So I welcome the department. I welcome SASSA. I welcome Dr. Lowe and all the members and that sort of thing. But may I ask, we can leave the door open for a little bit of fresh air to enter. It's a bit humid. If you want to take off your jacket, would you mind if I take off my jacket? I have to ask first. I will do that. It's a bit on the hot side. And HOD, thank you so much also for your all the time availability to present and to talk to us. And I'm going to hand over to you guys with regard to funding of old age homes. That is number 1 on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon to you and the honourable members, as well as our colleagues from the Department of Social Development and from SASSA and the Secretariat. I think we are ready with the presentation. I believe there's some technical issues with the PC that's required, but we got some printouts.
Even if you, I do have my own printout already,
okay,
but
cool.
Even if you talk us through, take us through.
I think it's now come alive or something's happening there. So I'll see, maybe we'll get started. There it is. Okay, cool. So we can go. Then
I'll have to probably manage this as well.
I can press the button.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks. Then I'll talk.
Oh, it's on her laptop. Okay, so you just have to say when you want the page changed.
Okay.
Oh, you're gonna give it to him. I think that's gonna be too far, eh?
While you're doing that, member Bansi's also have joined us now, and I just need to introduce him. My cover up for this meeting, just that you are aware.
Okay, Chair, thank you. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Charles Jordan, our Chief Director for Children, Families and Special Programs, to do the presentation.
Sorry, sir. We just need to log into the Teams. Okay. Unless I start, Chair, because I mean, they must still log in for the other people online. Thank you very much for the opportunity on behalf of the Department of Social Development Older Persons Program. We're going to look at just a few aspects that I would like to discuss today. And the one is, if I look at the content, our legislative framework, the staff component that works with older persons. I'm looking at the profile of older persons in the Western Cape Province, the strategic objective and program focus of the program, our budgets, the breakdown. The focus is specifically also that the committee has asked us just to also look at old age homes in the rural areas. Then the support to our standalone residential facilities, and I will explain when I get there what the standalone means. Then roles and responsibilities and our gaps and priorities. So the legislative mandate of the Older Persons Program is specifically the Older Persons Act, number 13 of 2006. And that came into operation, that act, in April 2010. We also have minimum norms and standards for our residential facilities. So every old age home needs to follow specific norms and standard, and also for the community-based care services. That is the senior clubs and the senior service centers that we've got in our communities. There's norms and standards for them as well. And then currently we're busy with the Older Persons Amendment Bill. Our National Department of Social Development in Pretoria, they are leading the process. So there is amendment bill on the table, and very near in the future, we will actually then be informed about that. Okay, the component of the Department of Social Development that works with the Older Persons Program, we've got one program manager, and it's Ms. Debbie Fontaine sitting there. She's our manager, and next to her is Patiswa Mamoza. She's our director. That is specifically for older persons and people with disabilities. So Patiswa is our director for both units. Then we've got 6 policy developers at head office, and this is officials that look at policy development, program development. We've got social workers, we've got assistant directors, M&E. I am aware that the committee was presented before on the department's monitoring and evaluation processes with NGOs. Now, specific in each program, we do have staff that deals with that specifically, the monitoring and evaluation of old age homes, community service centers, and so forth. So you can see there's 2 assistant directors that's dealing with monitoring and evaluation in the unit. There's social workers that deals with monitoring and evaluation, and there is monitoring and evaluation officials, and then admin support. I think it's very important for us to just establish where are we in the Western Cape when it comes to older persons. Older persons is also defined, according to the Older Persons Act, people from the age of 60 and above. Males and females. Years ago, with the Age Person Act of 1967, they actually still discriminated where men were seen as 60 and women as 65. But now, luckily, it has been equalized. So if you're 60, you are classified as an older person in South Africa, a senior citizen. The interesting part is 58% of our population for older persons are females, are women. So it seems our ladies do live a little bit longer. Then there is an estimation currently of 770,000 older persons or seniors in the Western Cape Province. The thing that I need to show you and bring your attention to is the shocking growth that's going to take place in the next 8 years. We're going to jump from 770 to over 1 million persons over the age of 60 in this province. That is a dramatic jump. This jump has also got to do with various factors. It's due to the quality access to health services for older persons. It is also the migration of people from other provinces. When they do retire, they do come to the Western Cape to come and retire. So that all increases the population. The other very concerning factor is in 2050, this population number will triple to over 2 million. So that is something that's of concern that we need to look at when we do any planning for the future. Just very briefly, the strategic objective of Older Persons Program is that we ensure access to quality social development services for poor and vulnerable older persons. Our focus is rendering services to all older persons, but our focus specifically is people in very poor and vulnerable communities. That is our main focus. So in other words, also people, older persons that get SASSA grants, they are very much vulnerable. The program purpose is to design and implement services. Our focus is to develop a developmental approach to aging. And one of the things that the Older Person Act actually supports a lot is that older persons must stay with their families as long as possible. This whole notion that people get dumped in old age homes is not a very positive thing. So your policy in South Africa emphasizes very much that older persons should stay in the communities and with their families for as long as it's possible. A focus that we do too is residential care, specifically for frail older persons. Your frail older persons are people that's 24/7 in bed and they need nursing assistance 24 hours, 7 days a week. Then also a thing that's very part of our focus is home-based care. Department of Health also does home-based care, where they do outreach to sick and senior people at home. So there's a home-based care a model as well. As I've mentioned, and also we support a lot of service centers and senior clubs, and that's where the older persons come together during the week. They have a meal, they do a little bit of exercise, they talk, they have motivational speakers, anything. It's socializing. It's basically socializing where they actually meet each other and support each other. Also very important, that a thing that we focus on is independent and assisted living. That two concepts I need to explain because a lot of people confuse this with an old age home. An old age home is a place that's got a frail care center with nurses in. Your independent and assisted living for older persons is usually houses where there is 15 people living in a house in different rooms, but they don't need a nurse. They're still healthy. They can still take care of themselves, specifically if they are independent. So a carer would come in, help clean the place, do the washing and prepare meals. Assisted living is where older persons do need assistance, where they can't do little things for themselves. They can't wash their clothes anymore. They can't comb their hair anymore. They need somebody to help them to do shopping. So that you get actually facilities that we fund and support, that's called assisted living as well. So it's very important that we do not always confuse the three concepts. Then a very important factor too is the registration of the facilities. The Older Persons Act requires that each and every old age home in this province needs to be registered. We do monitoring reporting processes. I will go into just a little bit more in detail about that. And then very important is that part of the Older Persons Act, we do monitor elder abuse. So we've got a system that's just starting to work. It's the Older Persons Abuse Register, it's electronic register, where old age homes, DSD officers, anybody that knows of an older persons that abuse, although they go to SAPS to report abuse cases to be prosecuted, cases needs to report to us as well. So we keep it on the register and we can then see how many people have basically been going through processes and actually ensure that they do get the support that they need. The budget and of this department, there has been a dramatic drop, and I'm very honest by showing this to the committee. Since 2019, 2020, we had 248 million rand for this program. Currently, in this financial year, it has dropped to 236 million rand. So there has been budget cuts by our department in the older persons program, and that does have severe effects on service delivery. If we look at the residential facilities, the old age homes, there's 114 of them that we fund in the Western Cape province, with a total of 196 million rand. That's 83% of our budget. Then service centers, we fund 185 of them to a value of 26 million rand. That's 11% of the budget. We fund independent living places, assisted living places. There's 11 of the independent and 16 of the assisted living to a value of 2 and 2.8 million alternatively. Then we've got some organizations like Age in Action that helps with abuse. We've got Dementia South Africa that helps with various cases. So that total budget for, and we fund 25 social worker posts within the NGO sector to help with older persons issues. That amounts to 7.2 million rand that we fund per year. And then we've got one organization that helps us with health audits, since the Department of Health does not assist us with any health audits. And unfortunately, we social workers and psychologists and stuff, we're not health people. So we actually had to buy in the services of an organization that will speak later on online in this committee that assists us with a health audit. Just a breakdown to go even bigger. So it's also important to note, besides the 114 old age homes we fund in poor communities, there is 173 private old age homes, which is in middle class and high income group communities. So there's a total of 287 residential facilities, and we are responsible to ensure that they all get registered. Even if we don't fund them, we need to assist. Registration process is also combination and in collaboration with the municipalities, because the municipality needs to give zoning rights, they've got to give health clearance, they've got to give fire clearance, all that the municipality needs to provide before we can continue to register. I think the important thing is also then to look at the breakdown of where do we find these old age homes. In the Eden Karoo area, there's 42 of them. In West Coast, there's 6. And this is private ones. Sorry, this is the private ones. Cape Winelands, there's 22. Metro North, which is Bellville, Goodwood, Thornton, all those areas, it's 55. Metro South, which is Wynberg areas up to Muizenberg and all of those areas, there's 26. And Metro East, which is Kalitschas, Somerset West Strand, and all those areas, there's 20 of them. Okay. If I look at the breakdown of the ones that we fund for the committee, because the committee specifically also asked at rural areas. If I look at the residential facilities that we fund 33 in the Cape Winelands area. That's in poor and vulnerable communities. We fund 22 in the Eden Karoo, and on the West Coast, we fund 15 homes from the department side. I have done a breakdown also of the other functions or other categories we fund, but I think the question was specifically the residential facility today in today's meeting. One interesting factor, a lot of these old age homes do belong to Badisa or to ACVV, Afrikaanse Christen Vrouwenvereniging. So each of them has got about easily 45 to 50 old age homes themselves in this province. So they've got a mother body with all these old age homes, and they've got a nursing manager sitting at the head office, but they've also got nurses and managers in the old age homes. Those old age homes in general, we do not have challenges with, because they are well resourced with staff. They've got good guidelines from the nursing manager and the mother bodies, that's specialists in older persons. So they deal also very well with complaints. If there's a complaint in an old age home or even with COVID, we have gone through quite a process. We had to bring in all the regulations of COVID, how to implement rules and regulations in old age home to protect the older persons so they don't get infected by COVID. And it's been a very difficult time because the Disaster Management Act requested that nobody could visit the old age homes. And that was almost for a year and a half. That was very traumatic for a lot of people. But that COVID regulations is still to a point being adhered to, that people still wear masks in old age homes, because our older persons are the most vulnerable and acceptable to any virus. No matter if it has gone down in the province, we do still monitor it weekly. It has gone down very good, but there is still cases here and there. We've also done a whole project on the vaccination of all the staff and all the older persons in all of the 300 old age homes. So it's been a very daunting time, that stage. But when I get to certain old age homes in rural areas, they do not belong to RCFF or Badisa. They don't have a mother body. It's an old age home that was set up by the community. The property belongs to the NGO in the community that runs it. It's those kinds of old age homes that we as a department have very much concerns about. If I look in the rural areas, there's one in Cape Highlands, there's 4 in Eden Karoo, and there's 1 in the West Coast. So it's about 6 that we've got our concerns about. The issues that happen here is that there's not enough money coming from the communities or donors to keep them financially sustainable. It does not help that the department's budget has been cut because we can't give them more money to increase the subsidies. Also, it's very difficult for them to recruit nurses, registered nurses. Registered nurses do get much higher salaries in hospitals and in private mediclinics. They do not get this kind of money in an old age home in a rural area. And then also the one thing that I've got a big concern about is the infighting of board members in the community in some of these standalone old age homes, where there's infighting about power and position. And it's sometimes keep us quite busy because then the one board gets thrown out. The next morning, 2 days later, we hear there's a new board. Who do you recognize as which is the correct board now? And the constitution of any organization usually prescribed when an AGM must be kept to elect a new board. So there's a lot of infighting, and it gives us quite a lot of headaches, the fighting. So what are we doing from our side to assist as well? So the kind of interventions we have to do at these old age homes in the rural areas that is standalone. We've got to help them with the financial management because they don't always have an accountant on their board. We usually also make use of old age homes nearby that's got very strong systems to also oversee them and help them with their finances. We've got to give them a lot of guidance on support with their governance and their responsibility as board members of an old age home. We've also got here and there a mentor, as I've said, from other old age homes that's established that help us look after these old age homes. And we also increase our monitoring and evaluation processes here, where we really do put in a lot of effort. I'm almost there. Monitoring and supervision assistance to these NGOs. The Older Persons Program monitor and assist funded NPOs like old age homes per annum, or alternatively in a 3-year cycle. In terms of the relevant contract agreement, the transfer payment agreement, or the SLA as we call it also, that we enter legally into between the department and the NGO. So an NGO must sign a legal contract before we give them funds. The monitoring evaluation tools are being used by M&E officials and social workers. So they do desktop monitoring annually. We do on-site monitoring every 3 years. We do quality assurance every 2 years. We also use a mentoring and evaluation tool. We do a rapid assessment when we want to do a quick spot check. So if you inform me that there's a person in this old age home that complained that they don't get good food, the food is bad, or there's somebody stealing money in the old age home, then we do a rapid assessment. So that's another form of monitoring. We also do financial inspections, and we red flag those organizations that we pick up these financial inspections. It's not necessarily always fraud. People confuse fraud with not good management. With not good management, they maybe use the money for the wrong things, but we can trace the money. We know exactly where the money has gone to. Fraud is if they actually steal the money, take it for themselves or personal use and disappear. But a lot of boards do not understand that. So when 2 boards start fighting with each other, they accuse everybody constantly of fraud, and then it's not even fraud. So that's the one thing that I also mentioning here. Then every year, every home needs to provide their audit financial statements by a chartered accountant or by an auditor, a bookkeeper, registered bookkeeper, or an auditor. That audit financial statements we do analyze. We get it by December of every year, according to our contracts with them. I do, however, give extension if an old age home has got a problem until March, the latest of a financial year. I've got a team that then sit and analyze the audit financial statements and look at the financial liquidity of such an organization. The 5, 6 that I've mentioned in the previous slide, their financial sustainability does not look good when I look at the audit financial statements. The assessments we do also with the NGOs, quarterly they've got to provide us progress reports of the people in the facility, their ID numbers, basically that they do exist. We do double check if the people are there, and it's not numbers that's been fabricated to us. But I must say we get very good operation from the old age homes. 99%, we really get very good cooperation. We also verify and validate the non-financial data like registers. We look also at targets and outcomes and activities as prescribed in the contract. We monitor. Then quarterly, they've got to give us the income and expenditure report. So the income they've received only from us, we check that quarterly. They do not need to declare to us any funds that they get from donors. Might it be from another private big Coca-Cola company? We don't look at private donors. We're not allowed. It's not a mandate. We only look at public funding, the money that the government provides. We also look at the audit financial statements, site visits I've mentioned all those stuff. Then we also provide capacity building where we pick up there is issues in the old age home. So if we identify non-compliance, we develop a service delivery improvement plan. We call it an SDIP, and we usually give them 3 to 6 months to comply. So it could be, for example, that we pick up they don't have a proper donation register and they don't keep accurate note of a donation register, or they don't have proper notes of the activities of what's going on in the old age home. That kind of things, we then give them 3 months and say, you've got to fix your donation register. This is how it should look. This is how you need to fix it. We check how they issue out the medication. So we've got even a process of looking at medication. We look at the sluice rooms. We look at the cleanliness of the place. We look at the food. We look at the kitchens. So we go through all of that when we do a full visit. If I even pick up something in the kitchen, we will ask them to fix it as immediately, specifically when it comes to hygiene. We then do a follow-up within 6 months after we've given them the service delivery improvement plan and they've signed for it and they've agreed to it. And if needed, they struggle, then we provide capacity building to them as well. Okay, I think I can skip that. Gaps, and I think that's almost the second last slide. Our gaps in our service delivery is the implementation and rollout of funded home-based care services. We need to prioritize that because we do see that old age homes becoming more and more expensive and unaffordable. Today, it costs easily for a person in an old age home, and I'm talking about an old age home that we fund. That unit cost to look after a frail care person would be about 7,000 Rand. If you go to a private old age home, it can cost up to 15,000 to 20,000 Rand. So it is becoming more unaffordable to keep these facilities running. That is a gap in our service delivery. Residential facilities are not allowed in terms of the Older Persons Act to accommodate people under the age of 60. We have, however, as a department, had crises where people below the age of 60 had absolutely nowhere to go. They had no family. They were on the street. We had to look the other way because it's the human dignity and the human rights thing to do, to take them into the old age home. That puts immediately pressure on the department financially, but that is, we need to do it. We've also come across some disabled people that's, say, 50 years of age, that's got absolutely nowhere to go. And when the old age home agrees, because we can't force an old age home to take in people, but if they agree to help us taking the person into the old age home, then they do. So that is a service delivery gap that I need to identify, which goes to the fact that there's not enough places for people with disabilities and people below 60 when they don't know where to go and they need care. Then we also need to strengthen our emergency placements and assessment center for older persons. And then also a policy that could help a lot is the National Special Housing Needs Policy. It has been developed by national, and our provincial government was involved from human settlement side and DSD side. That policy has not been implemented yet. That actually provides, through the subsidy of houses, actually places for people that do need access. For example, in a special needs housing policy, you can put 6 houses together with a carer looking after the house and actually have 6 people in those houses. So you can accommodate quite a lot of people. Then the last slide, what is our priorities? Our priorities is to register every single residential facility in the Western Cape province. We have not succeeded by registering all of them due to the fact of that we've also got just so much staff. We will continue with our monitoring compliance with norms and standards. We will strengthen our interventions with these standalone old age homes, specifically in the rural areas, as I've mentioned further on, or earlier on, due to the lack of their capacity and skills, the poor functioning of their boards, and the financial mismanagement. We have appointed a mentor in certain instances that helps us as well, that spends a lot of time at these places. And this mentor provides financial management and support provided by strong, capable facilities. We also, as one of our priorities in the future, want to look at introducing home-based care when we get funds, and then addressing the rights of older persons and strengthening of protection services to older persons. And then I think the biggest thing that's under my heart today is that we need to lobby assistance and support for more funding from Provincial Treasury for the allocation of this program that's been cut. It has been a very sad and traumatic period for us even, and for the homes to go through this. So yeah, Chairperson, that's that from my side. Thank you very much, and thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. I'm just wondering, I think members, let's do the follow-up presentation as well. The two interlink with one another, and then we can ask our sets of questions. Dr. Lowe, please.
I should don't lose your lack of thoughts, yes, talking.
This might be better. Is that? Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Thank you. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you for the opportunity. And let me start by just giving our condolences to you and your party for the loss of the Chief Whip. It's always a sad occasion, and it's always much more than the work that we do when we lose a person any time in our lives as such. Good day to the rest of the committee, as well as to the staff, and so I say the colleagues that I know. I actually call them colleagues sometimes, DSD. I see some of their faces there. I just want to, I'm not sure if you can, let me do that. Can you see me?
Doctor, often we experience some technical problems. If we don't see your presentation, you are most welcome to talk us through the presentation as well, please.
I will talk you through, Chairperson. I only saw the meeting 12 o'clock this afternoon, although it was sent to me earlier. I was out of town and busy with other projects, and this morning I started my work attending to some crises, and so I didn't prepare a presentation as such, but I will give the committee some feedback on our involvement with assisting the department. I think since 2015 with assisting these old age homes, and then I want to briefly just speak about a home such as Maritzburg, where we are currently involved as well. Let me just give you my personal background. I was working in Treasury, a Provincial Treasury audit team in 2001, 2002, 2003, when Dr. Stachman was still the head of Treasury there. I was then tasked by him to develop a financial governance framework for the Western Cape, which I did. I left Treasury around about the end of 2003. But that policy became the official policy of the Cabinet, I believe, in 2008. That's the last that I know about that. So when we engaged with the department, one of our aims was whatever we do to assist them in the old age homes was to also align it with those governance principles. Since I left them, I've developed a PhD that consists of populating a similar framework with processes and controls, which we then utilize at PwC. So in the homes that we did from 2015, we were successful because we applied the principles. We had the data, we had the processes. We didn't have to do any thumbsucks as such. And just a briefly overview on that, the department can correct me if I'm mistaken as such. Recall it when we did the first home that we did, we got involved in Ikaya and then at Rosemoor, Coronation, then Rosemoor, then GH Stark, Lingiligwe, all with their different challenges. We gave off, first one that we gave off was Coronation. We gave it off. When we received them, there was a lot of problems. 2 boards managed the old age home, typical what the previous presenter said. Each one claiming them to be the official board. And the problem is if you have a community-based old age home, you have to be very, very careful and have a careful look at the constitution. We found that those homes, there is not a member list. So the community just comes together and have a meeting and say, we're now the new board. If you don't have a members list, it means, according to constitution, half of the population of that community plus 1 forms a quorum. So I was always concerned when I look at those constitutions that they need to be re-looked at. They need to be re-evaluated and see, can good governance really follow from that? And when we were involved, I could never really get any one of those constitutions that really worked for us as such. There was disarray in the home, financial management, financial mismanagement, theft. There was theft as well. And we started implementing controls. We were 2.5 years. And the last part of the half years, the ESD asked us to withdraw from the old age home, which we did. We trained the board, we trained everybody there, we trained them a couple of times, we trained the staff a couple of times during our involvement there. And we handed over, I think it was the end of September, and the next day we went through just to say goodbye to the staff as well as residents as such. And I was then informed by the auditors who were going to do the financial management at that stage that the board didn't turn up for anything else. So we were, after 2.5 years, immediately back into square one as such. Rosemoor was from the beginning a problem, and we devised a plan with the department to assist them for that period that we were involved there. GH Stark, when we arrived there, there was something like 47 Rand in the bank account. The staff hasn't been paid for 2.5 months. Bills was outstanding, and there was just mayhem as such. The department gave us some funding, and I think after it was about 8 months to a year, we left. After 245,000 that the government gave us as rescue funding, which means that we can use it on behalf of the old age home where the crisis is the greatest. We only use a portion of that, so when we hand it back, we also handed back 145,000 as such. When we handed Coronation back, we've paid off all their debt in their 2.5 years. We've settled the outstanding municipal account that was over 260,000 Rand. We settled a 300,000 Rand account that they had with feed, and was providing the food there. We settled that on their behalf, and we left them with 660,000 Rand in the bank, plus a 2 months cash flow, which means at the end of the month, when they get this month's subsidy, there's already 2 months in the cash available that hasn't been utilized the previous years, and we pay within 30 days as such. I'm not sure how much of that money is left as such. On Ikaya, which was the home where we were the longest, I think that's a success story. It took us quite a long time, a lot of challenges while we were there. Struggled to get competent board members, eventually got hold of them, and we gave Ikaya back last year, beginning of the financial year, beginning of last year's financial year. We handed back to them, and I believe they're still doing well. They had 2.3 million in the bank that's been saved up during our tenure there. And they also had funding that we gathered for them to lay hold of that property as such. So applying those principles really work. But yes, it is costly. It's far to drive there. People have to stay there, and it's not. Unfortunately, it's quite a complicated work. You know, if we go in there and the home, there's not anything that's correct. The menus is not correct. The staff records is there. Most often we find that people take away, when they move off, they just take all the records that they can get that implies them as such. The care of the residents, the medical, there's not a portion of the norms and standard plus extra financial management that's really operating. They're flying by the seat of the pants, writing out checks, spending money as they seem fit and whatever pleases them as such. So the process is really, to turn them around is really a long process as such. And part of the challenge with that process lies within the constitution of these homes. The department and ourselves always had to be very, very careful because the constitution gives a accountability for the board. And the question is, at what stage do you overstep your boundaries and meddle in the board's accountability, so that they might turn up and say, but you told me this, or you showed me this, and I did it that way, and now it's correct. So the lines between what the department can do in the old age home and what the board is accountable to do should be very, very clearly defined. It can really create problems. We found it during the administration time. We really find it a couple of times really problematic, and with the support of the department, we were able to resolve those issues as such. So that's my one remark, or my couple of remarks as far as that is concerned. If I can turn just to Huysmarisburg. Huysmarisburg sits right on the border of the province. It actually falls, church-wise, it falls in the Eastern Cape. Maritzburg's Huispitskop is a home that is a different kind of standalone. It doesn't belong to the community. It belongs to the Dutch Reformed Church of the Eastern Cape, to that congregation. The Eastern Cape, there was a similar organization like Bedisa in the Eastern Cape, but they, a number of years ago, they have dissolved. And they gave all the old age homes back to the, or the properties back to the churches, where, you know, in the communities, the church had already started that as such. The only property that was not given back to them was Huysmarisburg. What they did with Huysmarisburg, it's still registered in the name of, or it was at that stage, it's still registered in the name of the NPC, of the housing NPC that the Eastern Cape Dutch Reformed Church had. They just hand the NPC over and say, here is the NPC now, the building is here, you don't have to register, you change the NPC, you appoint your new directors, you change your MOI, and you own the property now as such. So we sit there with a deal system where there's an NPC as well as an NPO. And currently, I think the funding was signed under the name of the NPO, but the board of the NPC runs it currently. So we're busy addressing that issue. So it's a little bit different if the people stand up there and say, you know, this is a community old age home. It's actually an old age home that was started within the fraternity of the Dutch Reformed Church as well. We've got a couple of plans and ideas that we're going to discuss with the board within the next 2 months, before the end of October, most likely towards the end of November. in resolving that matter to see how we can get community more representation as such. The problem with these old age home, Chairperson, is the skills of the people. The people don't have the skills. I know, for instance, in Maritzburg, there was a complaint, but the board doesn't change and there's no other people in the board. But when the board last year asked in the community for people that want to serve on the board, they only had one response. People that they approached were just not interested in doing that. And I always say that if you want to run an old age home, you need skills. Representation is one thing, but as that representation is not skilled, to understand the management of the old age home, to understand the acts, to understand all those things, you know, then it's problematic. Of course, how do you manage? To assist that process, we've developed a framework, the policy manual for old age homes. I think it's 290 documents. There's one currently at Maritzburg. We have recently updated it for them. That provide you the policy. It will tell you what needs to happen. How do you wash your hands? What you need to do, and the next column will tell you why you need to do it. That assists any lay board to stand up and say, okay, at least I can read and I can understand. You have to do this because if you don't do it, that's going to happen. You have to do the next step because that is the result if you do it. So to that manner, we try and assist them as such. If you don't have the skills level, financial management will suffer. And I'm afraid we are going to give a report. We need to give a report to the board at Maritzburg about the sustainability and feasibility. And I'm afraid most of these old age homes will not be financial viable if they don't get additional funding. The Bedisas and RCFSS has got churches behind them. They've got many congregations. They've got more congregation at old age homes. They've got old age homes. They've got the resources and the capacity to find additional funding. A home such as Maritzburg doesn't have that. A home such as Coronation doesn't have that. A home such as Kaikaya doesn't have that. And the people whose family members are in the old age home is just as poor as they are. So there is no resources for that. The challenges as Maritzburg is numerous for that old age home. The bank currently only operates sometimes 2 days a week, sometimes 1 day a week, sometimes none a week. That's challenges with paying the pocket money out. It's challenges for making payments and to do all the financial bank stuff. We have to find ways around that. It's a small community. I believe there's about 7,000 people. I speak under correction. That's what I heard the last time. Living in the town. If you tell them you must get 3 quotations, where are you going to get 3 quotations? It's not possible to get a quotation either from Beaufort West or some of the other towns in the region. It's just as expensive. So it's difficult, those challenges, to really to resolve that. And I think we discussed this with the department, and I know they're positive of the idea. Well, they used to be, and I still believe, I haven't spoken to him quite a while, but they used to be that we need to fund those old age homes a little bit more. I've got 2 problems with that. If you fund them more, if you increase their funding, and there's financial mismanagement or not the skills to financial manage a property appropriately, then you're actually wasting money in any case. So when you start funding more, you need to make sure that the financial systems and the financial processes is running. At Maritzburg, we provide the board on the 7th of each month, up to date. We provide them with a ratio management, with a income and financial statement compared to the budget for that month, as well as year-to-date totals, as well as month totals, so that you compare budget month to month, budget with year-to-date totals, budget with the actual numbers and the expenses as such, that assists them and us to make informed decisions in that. We then use a ratio management where we calculate cost per resident, per staff member, because it's easier to pick up that we saved 100 Rand for electricity per staff member or 600 Rand per resident. if we save a 50 rand of that, it's easier to understand that. It makes more sense in that sense, and also gives us a feeling. If I pay per resident 600 rand, it means for electricity, it means that in a home, if there's 4 people, your electricity bill should be around 2,400 rand. So we try and break down the numbers so that the people as such can know. Challenge that we do have at Maritzburg at this current, our indicators is they're not sustainable. When the department did the review there, we look at it. The municipality, they owe the municipality currently, I think it will be this month, if I look at what was last month, about 450,000 rand in outstanding fees. There's no way that that debt can be serviced, even can be paid off. Currently, the budget runs on a 2,000 rand surplus at the end of the month. And then we have to address a lot of other issues as well, plus staff that haven't had any increases for some years. They get the minimum pay, but they didn't have any incentives for the work that they do. And we are currently looking at the budget. I've got tomorrow a budget meeting with the accountants to see how can we work that in. So there's really serious challenges in that. Lastly, if I can conclude with that, I was wondering if I reviewed back, and maybe me and DSD can engage again and discuss those things. I'm of the opinion that norms and standards need to be prioritized. We can't just come into an old age home like a Maritzburg, like a Coronation, like a Ikai and say, here's all the stuff that you guys need to do, and this is what's wrong, and you have to do this in 6 months. Some of those things are is good to have, it's safe to have, but in a crisis, it's not a priority. So we need to prioritize and say, at the bare minimum, we want to see on the level 1 old age home, you need to do this. On the level 2, you move towards these norms and standards. Level 3, you need to move to these norms and standards. Otherwise, what happened, while you address issues at the old age home and trying to survive, you now have additional tasks. You don't have enough staff, you don't have enough accounting staff, you're not a BEDISA, you don't have all those other support services to your benefit and available to you. And now you have to do the asset register. And you have to do it in a prescribed form of an asset register. You know, they want a tag on this, and they want a list behind the door that says all that. And it takes a lot of admin, it takes a lot of things, and things get moved around in the old age home, and you end up, keeping more track of things where the chair is than really taking care of the people. So I'm really of the opinion, Chairperson, that one has to look at that and try and prioritize and try and put it in level, and then work to get these homes from level 1 to level B to level C. In Maritzburg the other day, we had assistance, and it was with great difficulty that we got somebody that can manage that place, that is skillful to do that. And after the meeting of support, I got a call, and she said she's going to resign. She's going to resign because the work now gets to the area where it's just too much for her to complete as such. So it's really challenges in finding that. Old age homes, those on not belonging to big groups, is at risk. And I will conclude by saying, if the projection is that these numbers is going to grow, as the previous speaker has said, as Charles has said, then I see problems for old age homes like the Maritzburgs as that. And I can't see how they would even be able to cope with those things. So we do have a crisis as far as the elderly is concerned. We're trying to keep the home open there because it's the second larger employer of 25 plus people plus 10 people that do relief work there sometimes. And there is 44 residents in there. If it has to close, one has to look at repurposing the building, but we cannot continue in accumulating debt that cannot be paid back. as such. So there is a challenge for these times. Thank you, Chairperson, for listening to me. And
Dr. Lowe, thank you very much for the detailed information. Without me wasting any time, members, up to you to forward your questions to the department as well as to Dr. Lowe. You heard everything with regard to old age homes and the challenges they are facing. Member Bunce, you expressed some issues with me some time ago, and I shall give you the first opportunity to ask your fair share of questions or to give your input.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to the department and to Dr. Lowe on the platform and to colleagues as well. Chair, this topic is very much close to my heart. I think the reason why you are saying I had talks with you is because I think not only as a committee, we did some rounds in the past year visiting old age homes. We did a couple of visits, but I took upon myself liberty to visit a few more. And the older citizens are very close to my heart. And one day I believe I'll be also at the old age home. One of the first questions you ask yourselves when I was listening to the presentation is the M&Es and how they are monitored and what is done. My question is, the beneficiaries are actually the older people. They are the ones that cannot speak. They are the ones that cannot sit here on this platform and say, I'm getting ill treatment and I'm getting this and I'm getting that. They can't do it. Nobody's doing it for them. How do we monitor their wellness? Let me start off there. I was not 100% prepared now an hour ago to come here. We are coming from a memorial service of our colleagues, so I think my spirits were a bit down and I was not as ready as I did when I put the request earlier of saying I want to engage on this topic because it's a matter that is a bit sensitive. Let me start at the end. Forgive me, Chair, if I have many questions, but right at the end from Dr. Lowe. Dr. Lowe earlier said that, let me start with Maritzburg. Also, Maritzburg happens to be my constituency. So I would be having much information. Maritzburg and then Ikaya, I visited a lot, and RCFF in Laingsburg. So I was trying to figure out what the difference is, how they are measured. And as the presentation goes on, it also enlightens me on a number of issues that I had. There was this one part when he said that the community was asked to appoint a board and they only had one application, if I heard correctly. My first question there would be, if it was advertised, how was it advertised that the community doesn't know? The reason I'm asking this question to Dr. Lowe is that old age home is very popular for it having many issues, staff-related issues, older citizens inside. Myself and MEC Fernandez, we are like citizens in that old age home. I'm always there. So how does it happen when there's always an uprising for that old age home? Then only one person applies. Where did the advert went out? The second one, I think, would be a comment on the poor people in old age homes are coming from poor communities, so it won't be sustainable. I agree with that one. Mine was on the appointing of boards. When you appoint a board, I believe, let me comment what I've seen at Ikaya in Guguletu. I've been there and I think there's a newly appointed board that was representing very well financial skill, community skill, everything that I think a board needs, it's there. And one can see also the transformation happening there. Now I'm asking myself, why can't you have the same then, for example, in Maritzburg? I know that board has been there for more than 10 to 15 years, which is unhealthy. The next thing, as a department, now I'm going back to the department, what is the criteria of the department of funding? Is there no clause that states that a board should be re-elected over such time, or these are the criteria or the skill that the board needs to possess to be receiving funding? And also, up to which extent do we have a right or a say on a running of a old age home? The budgeting part, there was another one, I think it was from Dr. Lowe. He was speaking of budgeting. The reality, I agree with the department when they say, I've seen there's a cut in budgeting and so forth. But at another committee, I think it's on sport where we've decided that you can't be saying for rural areas you are budgeting the same as a metro. It's impossible. And I don't know how to explain, because normally if people from the metro wouldn't understand, when you're in Maritzburg, you are on the border. To get a shop, you must travel 160 kilometers. It can't be one size fits all. 160 to go and buy whatever you want to buy to feed the community. You just spend it on fuel. So how come you give this same size of money? So it's something I think really that the department needs to look into. I think myself also as an MP, I can't be treated as my chair the same when it comes to our traveling, because it's the same scenario. We are from far and different places. So I wanted also a feeling on what the department is saying on rural areas and their old age homes and their budgeting. What is their view on that? Then again, yeah, the department is also speaking on SLAs that are signed by NGOs. When the agreement is signed, if maybe the department can also enlighten us as to what are you actually agreeing on? Is it a M&E or is it a working relationship? We don't know what the SLA is all about. Maybe if we can be enlightened on that as well. And then lastly, let me not say all my questions and give colleagues also an opportunity. The well-being of staff members at the old age home. Under who ombud does that lie? Before I continue with the rest of my questions, Chair, I think I'm going to pause. I still have a couple of them, but let me pause there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Barnes. The member online, please.
Chairperson, yes. Can I just get the last question from again? The question about staff.
My last question, I'm not sure if I'm posing it to the department or to you, Doc, but it's related with the well-being of the staff. Under whose ombud is the staff, their well-being, whatever happens at their work placement, their happiness and their unhappiness, who is actually having a say? Is it the old age home? Does the department have a say, or where does that lie? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank
Dr.
you,
Lowe,
Chair. Yes.
you want to answer immediately, or could I ask another member to pose a question?
You're welcome to ask another member, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable member online, please. That hand is very quiet. Dr. Lowe, you may proceed. You may answer.
Thank you, Chairperson. On the advertisement of the board members, I spoke to the board after the complaint surfaced, and it surfaced shortly before we signed our new engagement with the old age home there. I asked him, but when did the last? When did they last appoint the new members as such, and how they go about it? And they said to me they was trying for, and it's a yearly thing, they try to get people that are willing to serve on the board and to assist with the old age home, and they're looking for the skills as well. So they approach the school, they approach individuals, and they couldn't get it. So let me just link that up with the question about the ICAIA board. ICAIA, we started in 2015, we ended back in 2001. During that time, we struggled to get competent board members. We ended up headhunting. We headhunted the current chairperson because we couldn't get the necessary application to do that. And we appointed a new board members, and we start training that board members intensively. Because we headhunted the chairperson is extremely skillful, He served on the IOD at training for the Institute of Directors, so he really knows what he's doing. And with his assistance and with his guidance on the board as well, it was easy for us to hand it over to them, but it took some time. took some training. So, and we had a large population to choose from. The problem was Ikaya sits in an area where nobody wants to go and work because it's a dangerous area. So it's got its own challenges. But to answer that question, that's how we got there. And for the last year, the department didn't pay our costs. Ikaya did pay our costs. They agreed with us and asked us to stay next to them just for another year and assist them with the handovers and stuff, which we did. I'm not sure if they got some additional funding from the department to support that services, but we reduced the cost at that stage very, very tremendously as such. The training is essential for the success of the old age home. On the budget side, we've been assisting Spitscorp for more than 3 years. And my original agreement was then with the first agreements, we will do your finances for you to ensure that you can get audited financial statements. You have to do everything that side, send the documents to us, we will capture it, put it in a format and give it into auditors, because we've got auditors that looked after the homes where we work. And because we did the processes that we follow with the accounting system is the same, it means that when we give it documents to the auditors for each and every home, it gets the same set of documents. It makes the audit much easier, and it makes the audit fee much easier. So the homes under our care are paid in the region of 7,500 to 8,000 rand for the audit fee. So that's what we did with them, and they had to pay a fee for us monthly on that. But my agreement was we will never come and claim the money. So after the first 2 years, we wrote about 70,000 rand off that they didn't pay. Currently, they owe us 65,000 rand that they on arrears. Because we do the finances there, we first pay everything else, and if there's additional funding, we see how much of that can we do to pay us, and we submit that into the board for approval. There's a lady of the board that approves all the payments that are made as such. She gives feedback to the board, and the board sees those things on a monthly basis as such. Our fundings is cut to such a bone that we can't travel there when we need to travel as such. So that's as far as the budgeting, but close budget control and process control work. On the staff works for the old age home. The old age home is an entity in itself. So they report to the manager at the home, and the manager is an appointee of the board to manage the home on them. So ultimately, that's a function of the board to take care of the staff. And my concern with Maritzburg is the staff didn't get increases as such. I know their spirits is low, and we have a budget margin to see how much can we do, where can we get funding to do it, and can we make some arrangement with some of the other creditors to say we will pay you back, so that we can at least pay some bonuses to the staff as such. If we don't give the staff happy chairperson, it's a problem. An old age home needs 3 things to survive. It needs building, it needs residents, it needs staff, and it needs finances.
Thank you, Dr.
If your staff complements them, you can't. Let me stop there.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Passionate about it, yes.
It seems to me that we need a discussion with the department alone about this topic.
Yes.
In the near future. I want to propose for within the next ± 14 to 20 days that we find a date for that, only with the department. I'm just afraid with Sasa and other people online and that sort of thing, we're going to sit here till 6 o'clock, and I don't want that to happen. But let me, I see 2 hands, member Rachel Windvogel. Member Windvogel, quickly, let us not ask an awful lot of questions, but because I will make pretty sure that meeting happens so that we can, something is happening online. But Member Windvogel, you may go.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, mine is just on slide 7. I want to check, I'm not sure, perhaps I missed that part, when the department mentioned regions where they are giving funding to. I didn't hear Overberg in Southern Cape. Then Chairperson, also on slide 4, there's something about how long have these there's something about vacancies. I just want to check how long these vacancies exist and why have they not been filled. I think I will. Chair, I'm not sure what is happening here.
May I ask Baku Force, please, member, can you mute? Maybe that is the problem. Baku Force?
Yeah.
You're not muted as yet. Can we mute it from this side there? On that side? Okay, there she's muted.
It's muted. I muted myself, Chair.
That's the only two questions that I have. The issue, slide 4, the vacancies, and then on slide 7, in terms of the funding in the different regions, assisting homes in the different regions. I just need answers on that two questions. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Honourable Member. Honourable Baku Force. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mine will be in slide 3. The first question is, what are some of the highlights of the Older Person Act and norms and standards for the residential facilities? And are there any instances where these have been infringed? And how does the department guard against such infringements? Are there any monitoring and evaluation mechanism in place to check if all these facilities abide by this legislation and comply with the norms and standards? If so, how many times are these conducted? And my second question, Chairperson, is on slide 5. I would like to know how many of these older persons live in residential facilities and what is the breakdown per age and per region? How is the department planning and budgeting for the rapidly rising population of older persons? And the last one, Chair, is on slide 11. What are the details of these contracts entered between the department and these NGOs? Are there any facilities that have been closed down for non-compliance in the past 3 years? And the last now is 15. In terms of gaps in service delivery, I would like to bring this sad story of Miss Bless and her son, Walter from Nduli in Ceres. The MEC knows about these stories and subsidy has been approved by the provincial government and municipality, and she does not have a house. They live in an old building without electricity. She is an elderly person. I would therefore like to understand what process has been followed to support this family. Where can she go for service and what role does the department play in cases like this where the older person with disabled beneficiary lives under circumstances? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Christopher Fry.
Thank you, Chairperson. I apologize for being late. My other skill was used in the memorial service, and I had to get some other my keyboards down.
Honourable Baku, please mute again. Thank you. Honourable Fry, continue.
Thank you. I just have two quick questions to the first presentation. I'm just assuming that it's sad to see the budget is coming down. The budget has been cut quite dramatically, as you say, sir. I'm just with the next round of budget discussions. I'm assuming that you'll come to us with a definite figure as to what it needs to be in order to fund the fact that our older persons population will triple in a couple of years. And then to Dr. Lowe, about the financial management systems that are supposed to be in place. It's all good and well that we have these rescue plans, but what are we doing to ensure that this doesn't happen again? So that we don't get into this kind of problem again. Thank you.
Department, you want to answer? And after you, Dr. Lowe.
Okay. Yeah, let me just deal with some of them. Maybe Charles, if you can assist with the question about the are we missing Overberg and Southern Cape on slide 7?
It is actually part of Cape Wineland, so it
Okay.
is there.
So yeah, because in social development, our regions are Overberg is part of it's. We've got Cape Winelands. Overberg is one region.
Slide 9, it shows Cape Wineland / Overberg.
Yeah, that's it. So it's Winelands / Overberg. That's one region for social development. Then Southern Cape would fall in the Eden Karoo. That's the region. That's the name of that region. The question about vacancies not being filled on slide 4. We've had a delay in filling vacancies because we've had a big shortfall in our compensation budget. And we've had to do a whole process of reprioritizing the filling of posts, which has meant that we've had to, some posts aren't going to be filled straight away. We've had to stagger the filling of some posts, and some posts won't be able to be filled at all because we don't have enough money to fill all of our vacant posts in the department. So we are basically trying to fill the most critical posts first. And eventually we're going to reach the ceiling of our compensation budget, and then we won't be able to fill posts anymore. So that's the problem we're sitting with on that side too. The budget cuts haven't only affected the NGOs, but they've also affected the department's own filling of posts. The question from Honourable Member Baku Force. I'll ask Charles to assist on slide 3. What are some of the key aspects of the norms and standards, and have there been infringements identified? And then also the monitoring, do we monitor against norms and standards? How often do we monitor? If you can assist with that, Charles.
Sure. Debbie, you can just also add if I missed something. We do monitor against the Older Persons Act itself has regulations. That regulations actually gives an indication of what norms and standards you must implement. So, for example, if I take an old age home, it would say that there should be a specific 9 square meter space between 2 people sleeping in a room. That's how detailed the regulations are from the National Social Older Persons Act. It actually indicates to us as well the various kinds of processes that we've got to follow, the kind of programs we need to do in old age homes or the old age home. So it's got to say, for example, it would say that you've got certain activities, active aging activities you've got to do to keep the older persons busy, to keep them active. So that things are prescribed. The act would, or the regulations would also even talk about that a dietitian must approve the nutritional value of the food. So that's one of the things when we do monitoring and we do health audits, we do have a long checklist that's all linked up with the regulations, where we would look at fire extinguishers, when last was it serviced. We would look at the kitchen. We would look at how food are prepared. We would look at the menus. We would look at if there's approval from a dietitian or from health department, or even a private one for that matter. So there is so many steps and processes of norms and standards that we look at for residential facilities. The thing that we do is, and I'm going to be very honest, we do monitor these places quite often, but we're not there every day. It's impossible to get to 300 old age homes in the province with the amount of staff we have. Saying that, we have put things in place to actually counteract that. So that's why we do health audits that we've contracted from outside to help us with health audits. We have looked even at issues where we would do things within a 3-year cycle. So we've got a monitoring plan where we monitor them within a 3-year cycle with absolutely everything. But then we do also desktop assessments. So the progress reports that we get quarterly is also a thing that we monitor on a quarterly basis. The financials, everything of that we monitor. We also, when we've got a red flag, we pick up on the progress reports. We would ask our regional officers to actually assist us and just go check. If there's any form of abuse or anything that we look at, we have to investigate that as well. So we do check. There is organizations that did not comply, old age homes, with these norms and standards. We do not close an old age home just because they do not comply. We are concerned because that places the older person at risk. If the manager of the place or the board or even any of the nursing staff or carers do not follow correct procedures, it places the older person at risk, and we cannot allow that. That's something that the whole team is very passionate about this. The people that's been selected in this program is people that's been doing it for 20 years. We are passionate about the specific field, and we will not let these kinds of stuff go by if we know of a place that's not doing the correct norms and standards. I think also it is very important to realize that we do even do spot checks. There is a lot of cases that we do, as I've mentioned earlier, on rapid assessments. For example, one person complains about something that's not part of a monitoring plan. We actually go out still. So we still get to that old age home. So our staff is unfortunately constantly on the road, being at these facilities. I think the other question was also, Debbie, do you want to say something about norms and standards of old age homes? You would like to add?
Yes, Charles, I can add, there are some of these norms and standards that's actually non-negotiable. For example, your certificates that's been issued by the local authority in terms of the safety of the building, for example, those are non-negotiable because there's other legislation that's impacting and that's prescribed. Your staff, especially the nursing staff, is non-negotiable. Staff must be registered, the nursing staff, for example, with the nursing council. Only certain staff can issue, for example, or administrate a medication. It's prescribed in your nursing acts. And your health acts. So those stuff are non-negotiable. Your occupational health and safety, it's prescribed and it's non-negotiable. Now these are all norms and standards that's impacting on finances because it's costly. To get, for example, the municipality out to do a fire and safety inspection is costing the old age home some money. They won't come out, for example, if there's not a building plan that's been approved by the municipality. And so, thank you, Charles.
No, thank you, Debbie. I think also there was a question on closure from member Bakabakafos. This past few years, there's only 2 old age homes that closed down. It's not because of non-compliance. It was out of their own accord. They have decided that they're going to close down due to the fact that they financially just can't cope anymore. Nazareth House is the one. They've got a place in Cape Town and in Altis River. So they've closed the one in Altis River and actually accommodated all the older persons in the other facility. CPOA, Cape Peninsula Organisation for the Aged, they've also got about something like 20 old age homes. They have indicated to close down 3 old age homes, but there was negotiations and the other organisation took over. So we were part of the negotiations as a department, and that has gone very smoothly, the handover to a new organisation that's taken over those 3 old age homes. Debbie, what was the other old age home that closed down?
The other old age home that CPI is rebuilding is Acadia Place.
Yeah.
And then there's Clare Inch that also closed down by itself. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks.
So there is no old age home specifically that because of that we closed ourselves. It could also be the municipality that closes sometimes places. Because if an old age home do not comply, as Debbie has said, on zoning rights, business building plans, occupancy certificates, fire and health certificates, it's the municipalities actually also have the full authority to come in and say, sorry, you're not complying with municipal bylaws, you need to close. There's one place that we are busy now closing, but it's a small place, it's a private place. It's not one that we're funding because they're not complying. We've been trying for 2 years now to make them compliant. So that's one, but it's not one that's we're funding, and it is one in a high income community. So we actually do go after them as well. Robert?
Thanks, Charles. There was 2 questions around the budgeting, particularly from Honourable Bakabakafos. Are we budgeting for the growing old age population, and also Honourable Member Fry, budget cuts, and do we have a figure for what it should be? So are we doing costing to look at what we would believe we need to versus what we have?
Yeah, we do have costing. We've done a few years ago. So, and Dr. Lowe was actually part of a process when he assisted us. Currently, Dr. Lowe, Peter said that's online, We have not contracted him for any of this because we just don't have money. The only thing that his organization we've done for a procurement process, and that's to help us with health audits. As a mentoring organization, we could not afford because of our budget cuts. So about 5-6 years ago, Dr. Peterson, if I recall correctly, the exact date or time, there was actually looking at itemized billing of every single cost that you would need in an old age home. So there has costing been done, what it will cost on average for an old age home to survive. And yes, it will differ in a rural area. And I think Member Bonds has asked that specifically. That's something we seriously need to push because you are so right. If you're in an old age home, you need to get, and I think Dr. Peterson talked about it, you can't get free quotes. Your closest quote you get for something is 150 kilometers away. That's more cost for that old age home. So we can't actually pay them the same that we do in metro areas. So that is something seriously part of the funding model. It is millions and millions and millions we need to accommodate, but we need to keep on punching this in Treasury.
Yeah, I think we do make the case each year.
We do.
I think also the last question from Honourable Member Bakafos was about a specific case. I think that case would be, if it would be referred either to the local series office of social development, or it can be referred to the department via the standing committee. So we can assist with individual cases like that and usually try and find a place in a suitable home for the person. We do have space in some homes. It really depends on the individual circumstances, whether they're frail and what type of care they require. But the local office of DST would be the first point of departure for anyone who seeks assistance with a frail or vulnerable older person in terms of the Older Persons Act. And then the question about the financial systems and what should be in place at a home, and what do we do to ensure it doesn't we don't have backsliding once the systems have been put in place. That was a question from Honourable Member Fry directed to Dr. Peterson. So maybe, I don't know if you want to respond to that through you, Chair.
Could I ask, I'm just afraid time is running out and I want to get back to my earlier point. I think myself and the administration, we misjudged ourselves a little bit with the timing allocated to the two debatable issues for this afternoon. I think also with people online and watching public that is having a keen interest in this issue will agree with me that it's a little bit too rushed. I think we need to calm down. We need to get away from today and also from the week with the funeral this coming Saturday. I still propose to the Secretariat that we arrange a separate rounding off kind of a date and time and that sort of thing within the next plus minus 15 to 20 days so that we can do justice to this very important topic. I've got a number of questions. The major question is the budgetary issue, for instance. We can't just let it go and not debate it, and because we need to influence the budget. That's number one. Number two is the issue with regard to the home-based carers. Because that seems to me is becoming a very important issue because our poorer people can't get into a home. They need to be looked after at the house and that sort of thing by family members. Then the issue with regard to other family in a position to look after their elderly people. So it's very, very serious matters and serious issues. And in many instances in the poorer communities, families are not in a position to look after elderly people. And if you're looking at, and if you visit communities, you're looking at the state of elderly people, the poverty-stricken environments and that sort of thing. So then I'm of the opinion we're doing our own people a grave injustice, if I can put it to you like that. So I think let's do justice to it. Let's get back. Let's round off and let's look at all of these very important matters so that we can debate it in a very, very appropriate manner and steer issues into a direction. I think that is what's required from us. I think another important issue, what you have said, the forward planning. another topic. Are you doing forward planning? Looking at the growing population of elderly people. What's the role of the department? What's the role of government? Are we doing what is expected of us to do? Those kind of issues I'm of the opinion we need to deal with. Okay, so Secretariat, that is what we're going to do pertaining to this issue. Is only then the department and ourselves as a committee. Thank you very much. Dr. Lowe, thank you. I think maybe lastly I need to say to you, you ask also some questions, Member Buns. I think the department will visit the Karoo area the first week of October. Then we will be in Maritzburg, we will be in Beaufort West.
The committee.
Oh yeah, the committee. Sorry, my apologies. The committee will visit Karoo, Laingsburg, Beaufort West, and Maritzburg. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Lowe, nice listening to you. Thank you for your contribution this afternoon. Highly appreciated. Okay. Now, you may stay or you may leave if you want to. It's now for Sasa. I want to welcome Sasa and we listen to you. You want the department to stay, but Sasa, we're listening to you. Thank you.
Honourable Chair and members, we want to express our condolences for the loss, and we really may you have find strength in all the support you get. Okay, my name is Annelies Bester, and I'm the Acting Regional Executive Manager. Sorry, it's Annelies Bester. Yeah. All right, so you've asked us to talk about two topics. The one is to confirm SASSA's position in terms of money lending and the loan sharks. And the second one is on updating on social relief of grants. Now, the team here with me are the specialists in both areas. So firstly is Mr. Marlon Hubert, that will be presenting the part of the loan sharks, and he's managing the fraud unit in SASSA Western Cape. Then I've got Mr. Jafta here next to me that will be doing the part on the social relief grant. And he is once again managing the operations of the grants in Western Cape. Then I've got Ms. Wahab, that is our Senior Manager in Communications, and then Mr. Janssen, that's in the Office of the REM. So yes, to save time, I'm going to hand over to Marlon Hubert. I don't know if they're going to flag the presentation for us.
Thank you, Chairperson and members. We will, thank you for the opportunity. We will, the presentation outline, we will look at the purpose. Someone going to discuss it? Oh, sorry. All right, thank you. The purpose of why we're here, and then background. We will then also do the legislation that governs money lending. The money lending process that we within SASSA follow. SAP's money lending operation statistics, prevention, and social relief of distress, the 350 grant. As Ms. Best indicated, just to give you feedback on the processes in place to deal with loan sharks that are keeping SASSA cards of beneficiaries, and then the latest information on the status of SRD grants within the province. Now, SASSA's fraud policy is based on 4 legs, and the minimum anti-corruption capacity requirements is we base it on fraud prevention, fraud detection, investigation, and resolution. And when it comes to prevention, we do ethics surveys, fraud awarenesses that we do quite a lot within our offices. Also all over with beneficiaries. Our policy, strategies, and implementation plan. Background checks that we do even with suppliers and staff, and then the fraud risk management. Our detection leg is our management action, fraud auditing, compliance inspections, and whistleblowing mechanisms. When it comes to investigations, we cooperate with other law enforcement agencies. On a national level, we have the Fusion Center, which consists of the National Prosecuting Authorities, SIU, DPCI, Hawks, that we mainly and specialized units within SAPS that we work with on a daily basis, and then also strengthening our internal capacity when it comes to investigations. When it comes to resolutions, obviously, investigations that will lead to disciplinary hearings, recovery of losses, criminal cases, referrals, and then also the improvement of internal controls. Because when we do investigations, our reports will focus and will cover all of these issues, because you can't just investigate. There need to be preventative measures on how to prevent similar actions from occurring. When it comes to money lending legislation, mainly our Social Assistance Act that we deal with, and then also the National Credit Act. So I won't go into detail with all of that, just to highlight the most important, or the ones that we most use, and that we charge loan sharks on these. So what do we do? And the question that were asked by the committee of us to prepare or to come and present processes in place is that since 2012, 2013, we have been dealing with this phenomena of loan sharks in the receipt or having SASSA beneficiaries SASSA cards as well as IDs in their possession. So what we then did is to, in partnership with the law enforcement agencies, come up with a plan on how to deal with it. And we, what basically happens is that when SAPs conduct their operations, it can be anytime during the normal operations, checking for illegal activities. Then if they do pick up or come up upon SASSA cards, or even, I must also emphasize, not only SASSA cards, but normal bank cards, other bank cards, IDs, and so on of people. Then we, as the fraud unit, as well as the National Credit Regulator, who's an important partner in this process, we then, if so requested, we can also then be part of the operation with SAPS. Because the idea is, at the point where the operation is, be that a shebeen at the house, business premises even, we then need to identify the card as being a SASSA card. The National Credit Regulator is then the custodian of the National Credit Act. So they are also, as I've indicated, a vital partner in this process. All confiscated documents will then be properly documented by SAPS and recorded in the SAP 13 as per the Criminal Procedure Act. Copies of the cards are then forwarded to us, or we will make copies, because the main emphasis is then to identify the beneficiaries that these cards were issued to. Also bear in mind, these cards remain the property of SASSA, of government. We also then, now as the South African Post Office / Post Bank is our paymaster, we then forward these card numbers to them to identify the beneficiaries for us. We then verify this and retrieve beneficiary data from our own SOCPEN system to then follow up certain processes, amongst other then to convene an engagement, and that's not putting it nicely, with beneficiaries, but basically where we will get them together at either one of our service points at a hall or wherever. And then from SASSA point of view, we will then issue them with warning letters. We will also make a note on our own SOCPEN system for future reference, so that what we say, and the Social Assistance Act allows that a grant to be suspended if we find that you are either abusing the grant or you're not entitled to the grant. So if your card is with a money lender, our view is then that you are not using the money for the intended purpose. There might be a lot of other reasons why your card is with a money lender, because we call it loan sharks, but a lot of these cards are at shebeens. So you know, and a lot of them, the other thing is also at these informal shops, house shops or spaza shops. So, and that it is becoming a problem. So we then work with the SAPS investigating officer. He will then, at that specific engagement with beneficiaries, take down the statements. We will then, because that will be used for the criminal prosecution of these money lenders, and we then, in a nice way to say, but for the beneficiaries, you were also at fault. So it's not only against the loan shark, but also the beneficiaries, and they are aware that they have also done wrong, and that if need be, that they also need to come and testify in court of law against these money lenders. And I also need to emphasize we do have successes, in the sense that very little of these cases actually go to trial, because the loan sharks will enter into plea agreements. Because when we use these acts, you know, there's no. That is why we are working as a team with law enforcement. There's actually no escape or no challenge that you can actually make against the facts that is on the table. Any cash, and that's also important, that are confiscated by SAPS are either forfeited to the state or, as instructed by court, handed back to beneficiaries. And we are very strict with that, because what we do find when operations are being done, especially at ATMs, because we can either do it at a venue at the business premises of the loan shark, or at ATMs, where we get information that at within specific areas or at certain ATMs, these activities are taking place. So we then handed handed back to them as once the court has made a decision on that, or it's forfeited to the state. And that's also one of our measures or warnings that we do to the beneficiaries, to say, but if it is found at a loan shark, for instance, that will be your grant for the month, you will actually forfeit that money for that month, because it's not out of our hands, it's the court that needs to decide on it, or you forfeit that money to the state. Just as an example, beginning of August, about a month ago, we had an operation in Springs in Gauteng where 31 people were arrested. Over 300 SASSA cards were confiscated, and over 100,000 rand cash were also then confiscated. So it is a big issue. It is, and we also know that we're not even touching, you know, we are touching just a small percentage of what is actually happening in our communities. We will come to our prevention measures about what we're doing. Like I said, we are working very closely with law enforcement and other stakeholders to curb the scourge of crime perpetrated against the most vulnerable and poorest of the poor from our communities and society. And when we go and testify in courts, and we actually, as from a SASSA point of view, we emphasize, the conditions, because we also do our own investigations, why people go to loan sharks, the interest especially that they ask. Some of them will say it's rand on a rand. So if you borrow 1,000 rand, you have to pay back 1,000 rand. And the loan shark then keep the card until you have repaid it. But we've also learned you actually never get out of, because the loan shark also do them in, the beneficiaries, because a lot of them also can't read or write or can't do their maths. And they will just say, no, I will still keep your card because interest that's accumulating. And then the vicious cycle of person just have to borrow again. So you never get out of that cycle, and you become poorer, because the social grant is for our most vulnerable and poorest of our communities. The arrested party is also, and I need to emphasize this, not only your illegal loan sharks or money lenders, they are also registered financial service providers that we've also had operations on. Include your shop owners, our shops and the spaza shops, Sabine's, everywhere, and just your normal person, individual, or even syndicates, keeping people's cards and lending them money and keeping their cards, PIN numbers, and their ID numbers, IDs, because what they also do is they also force you to hand in your ID, because they know you can easily go and request a new card from the post office or wherever, but you need a ID for a new card. And then also following our engagement with the Provincial, Western Cape Provincial SAPS Commissioner's Office, all our cases are being prioritized and for investigation with our sisters. So we do have a very good relationship with SAPS Western Cape, and especially with specialized units, not only with money lending cases, but also our normal fraud cases. Just to give you an idea as to figures of money lending operations since 2012, in total number of cases up until present financial year, 106 cases. Number of people arrested, 109. Number of SASSA cards confiscated, 3,308. That's over a 10-year period. And then amount of cash confiscated, 313,921. So it is quite a challenge. And it is a big issue and something. Remember, our main focus is to pay beneficiaries social grants, or to administer the process of paying the grants. But you then think that beneficiaries will then use it wisely, but unfortunately, the figures speak for itself, and these are only the ones that we know of and that we've been part of investigation. Just to give you the main one that we use, the Social Assistance Act, and this is very important. A grant may not be transferred or ceded, pledged, or in any other way disposed of unless the minister on good grounds in writing consents it to, and then the beneficiary must, without limitation or restriction, receive the full amount. Maybe I should see if I can use this mic. The full amount of the grant that he or she is entitled to. And then just the National Credit Act, where it speaks to any credit provider, and like I said, whether registered or not, you cannot, it is unlawful and you cannot deposit with the credit provider or with any other person at the direction of the credit provider an identity document, a credit or debit card, bank account or automatic teller machine, access card, or similar identifying document or device, or provide a, like we say, PIN code or number to be used to access that account. So this is very, so, and again, when we use these acts, there's actually no, whether the argument is from the loan shark, but the person gave it voluntarily, there's no such thing as voluntarily. It's a condition of the loan from the loan shark that you must, because then he or she is assured from getting their money back. The penalties as per the law is in case of contravention, imprisonment for a period not exceeding 10 years or to both a fine and imprisonment, or any other case to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 12 months, or to both a fine and imprisonment. On a as prevention, from SASSA's side, like I've indicated, our main function is to administer the paying of social grants, but we can't just know about these things and not act. So we do act. So we then continuously sensitize our beneficiaries to not use the SASSA card or the grant as a security for loans from money lenders or loan sharks. We do that in our offices when your grant is approved when we hand over the letter of approval to the beneficiaries, so they are aware of it. SASSA card stays the property of SASSA and must at all times be in the beneficiary's possession. These are things that we regularly remind them of, but also when we have in BSOs, stakeholder engagement, all of these are regularly they are being informed about this. Also sensitizing them in BSOs and stakeholder engagements, because we even have flyers that we hand out about the do's and the don'ts of the SASSA card. And then continuously sensitizing beneficiaries of the misuse of the grant and that it is a very serious offense. And the Act also said if it's being misused, then we can actually appoint a procurator. We can request either social worker or whoever, another family member to then be the procurator for that beneficiary. So that is my part on loan sharks. Mr. Manuel can then do the SRT part.
Thank you to the Honorable Chairperson and the Honorable members. Just on social relief of distress, we were requested to just provide an update on where we are with SRD within this financial year. So there's just going to be an update on the previous information shared by the GM Grants, Mr. Tlangoti, in his previous sessions with the Standing Committee. So currently the new policy hasn't been signed off. The new policies should have been presented to the Standing Committee. So currently, as soon as it is available and signed off, we will present it to the Standing Committee. The policy is just giving the nuts and bolts to our amended regulations, which includes the SRD regulations, which was gazetted on the 31st of May. So the policy would just have provided the nuts and bolts that you required for us to present to the committee. The following slide is just what we've done thus far in terms of the SRD environment with the budget allocated to SASSA in the region. With the disaster cash payments, that's the cash payments provided when a person loses everything, specifically in fires. We assisted 338 people thus far with the budget of the amount of 513,171. The biggest part of the budget thus far has gone to immediate relief. Where disaster is declared or undeclared, SASSA is responsible to provide the assistance required. And in this instance, 6.6 million rand has already been spent thus far on assisting clients in the form of immediate relief. This covers warm meals, blankets, mattresses, vanity packs, all of those things where people are displaced, whether it's through flooding or fires. SASSA takes that responsibility. We just assisted about 4,500 beneficiaries in that environment. The area in terms of school uniforms, which is part of the current legislative framework for us to provide, which we receive from DSD, the school uniforms. Currently, we are out on tender to provide school uniforms. But in the meantime, SASSA has gone to, has concluded on the decision to do quotations with SMMEs and cooperatives to assist non-fee paying school clients in that environment. So we will be looking at spending about 10.982 million rand on school uniforms. So these will definitely reach the poorest of the poor communities, because we're looking at non-fee paying schools, and especially when we interact with schools, the principal and the school governing body and the school and committees, to ensure that they look at the most vulnerable within that non-fee paying school. There we go. So the one area, so we are busy. It's going to be a system where we do go out on quotation, and while we're busy with that, we are busy with the tender process as well. Similarly, with the voucher system, which is not in place in this region, we do not have a voucher system in place where a beneficiary is vulnerable. We can provide a voucher for that person to go to a shop and exchange for food. We don't have that system in place in this province. We, however, are also busy with the tender process for that process as well. So currently what we do in this province, Chairperson, and to the committee members, we provide the form of cash. If it's a cash payment in terms of fire disasters, or where the person is awaiting an approved grant, we will also provide him with cash in that sense. The money is transferred directly into the person's banking account. So that is where we are currently with SRD in the province, and that is the presentation from SRD. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much. Honourable members, I will give you opportunity right now. Thank you for the detailed presentations. Look, the issue with regard to the fraud policy and that sort of thing, we're quite familiar with that, because it's happening on our doorstep on a almost day-to-day basis, but it's a major problem as identified by you. It's amazing to hear on a month-to-month basis from members of the public, from community leadership, how many money lenders and those people sitting with cards of beneficiaries, and tens of cards, and they take their cut out of the grant and the rest they give to the beneficiary. It's an ongoing kind of an issue, but very problematic. The issue with regard to the confiscation, the 313 plus minus 1,000 rand, is that only pertaining to the Western Cape, or is it Cape Town? Apologies, you may answer just like, I think we can hear you.
Only Western Cape.
Yeah. You don't have a breakdown specifically for, I think it's much bigger in Cape Town, or is it big all over, across the board?
Chairperson, unfortunately, is actually in the whole of the province. We actually started in the Southern Cape. We still have, I think most of our operations are in the Southern Cape, in the George area. But we do have very good working relationships with law enforcement in that area. So we're having good successes in that field.
And not so good successes in Cape Town itself.
As indicated, no, we do have, but as indicated, we only act, on that was reported to us. So we do not get a lot of cases that's reported from the metro, but in the small towns, because I think it's also because it's so small and everybody knows everybody's business. Yeah, it's actually easier then to report and for us then also to act on it.
With regard to the amended policy you were talking about, did I understood you correctly? I think Mr. Jansen or Mr. Jefter, let me see.
Yes.
Yeah, Jefter. The policy to be provided to the committee may most probably at a later stage, was that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so for you to come back with a policy to this committee, okay, that's fine. That covers me. And then the school uniform issue, is that a new provision from SASSA side, or was it there all the time for schools to make use of?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. No, it's within our regulations. It's been we've amended the policy, the regulations in 2015, which then started with the school uniform projects under our previous minister. So the regulations was amended to include school uniforms. So we've managed to do school uniforms since 2016 onwards. Obviously, with COVID, all of the processes stopped, and now the regulations has been amended again, but it still includes school uniforms. The policy that I'm speaking to you about now is also going to give you the nuts and bolts about school uniforms. So school uniforms is part and parcel of the services that we render. So in a disaster, for instance, where a family loses everything, and there's a school child and a school child lost his uniform, SASSA has a responsibility to provide a school uniform as well. Although it's in the new amended policy that we will provide, but SASSA is responsible for providing school uniforms within its limited budget. That's why you indicated the numbers that I've put on would have been limited because it only covers about 264 children per local office. So they'll have to look at 3 non-fee paying schools and providing about 88 uniforms to a non-fee paying school. So that is the limitation of the budget that limits us in terms of the services that we provide in that area of the work.
Well, I think it's at least a step in the right direction to assist the poorest of the poor. It's just a pity we can't assist all of the poorest of the poor in a similar kind of a manner. Budgetary provision is not big enough. I think you're talking about 686 plus minus per local office.
So yeah, Chairperson. So we've got 16 local offices. So that would cover the 10 million rand would be 10 million, and will then be split between the 16 local offices to provide that number of uniforms per local office in the rest of the financial year, still until March next year.
May I ask you $1 million question? The issue with regard to the social relief grant, the problems you experienced some weeks ago with office space and assisting. I remember the big issue in the newspapers was the Khayelitsha area, the Khayelitsha issue. And you might not have expected that question, but with people online listening and anticipate what is it we're going to ask as a committee. Is that now resolved? Yeah.
You're asking about the Khayelitsha office.
Yeah.
Yes, it has been resolved. The city is now accommodating us in Kulani. We just for the moment, we using that site. It's like a service site because, of course, every evening they have to pack up the tables and so forth. But we're also negotiating now Kuyasa, where they are busy with maintenance. We did have a discussion on the 1st of September on what is still outstanding to be done, but we hope to be active in that office the 1st of October. So we are working with the city. So we're going to take up 2 floors. And then also, I don't know how long it will take, we want to take the large area, the ground floor as well. And the second option we have, the National Department of Public Works has secured a site for us where they're building an office for us. So we have 2 major sites eventually that we're going to utilize. But for the interim, the service site at Kulani, and then yes, hopefully 1st of October, we'll have Kuyasa 2 floors that we'll be utilizing. And we also, because the staff are working overtime, they're going to also utilize maybe schools to do some outreach programs. But we have no backlog in that office, that I can say with a positive voice. We're very proud of that office, of what they've done and achieved. So yes, I think everything is going 100%.
COVID. Did COVID had a massive, major impact on your services with regard to many more people coming forward and apply for a social grant? Did you pick up something like that?
I don't have the stats with me. I don't know if Monroe has any of that, but I think the 350 grant, of course, yes, is proving a lot to us that a lot of beneficiaries have lost their jobs and so forth. Now there is a target of about 10 million that we know what we can accommodate, and that's about 44 billion rand that's been set aside. Yes, so seeing those numbers, of course, it does have an effect. And yes, I don't know if you have any numbers here with you right now, we can send you the stats.
Offhand, of the opinion, there's an increase of people coming forward, apply, that kind of thing.
Thanks for that question, Chairperson. Yes, we have seen that, especially on our online platform. Now, all the people that never would have come forward for grants, now comes forward for grants, because you can see the income threshold, the income levels has dropped. That is the ones that has the facility to apply online. And then you see our normal clients coming for older persons. But I want to use older persons specifically because they have increased in the numbers that we have done over the past year. The ones that goes to the local office, the face-to-face as well. So we've seen an increase in numbers online, and those are more people that would not have applied previously because of the income levels was enough for them to support themselves. That has dropped, so you will see that many of those people now apply for older persons grants. Then you'll see our face-to-face as well. We've seen a marked increase in persons coming for the grant, which in the past would not have been the case. So yes, COVID had a definite impact in terms of that area. In terms of what the REMA has indicated in terms of the SRD 350, I think we didn't touch that really, but the SRD 350, the minister indicated that we need to increase the thresholds because the numbers that people that we've excluded, now we need to include them again. So we can see the numbers growing again because of this, and it's merely linked because people don't have any other area of other areas to go to being supported in terms of social assistance. So therefore we can see the numbers increasing.
So the losing of the closure of businesses, losing of jobs.
Yes.
Impact.
Definitely has an impact, Chair, because we see the numbers coming through our books.
Sure. Astonishing. I don't see any members online currently. The lady next to me, honorable member, you may speak.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have much questions.
Baku, I hear you. With you right now. Just a second.
I don't have much questions, Chair, maybe 1 or 2 comments. I've noticed your passion on this topic. Really, you forgot about us at some point. But I must say that it's a concern, and let me start by appreciating the presentations both. And I understood the passion of Chairperson when he was asking the questions, because those are matters that are boiling in our daily lives. At the end of the day, we are coming from communities. It doesn't matter, we go back to these communities, and these are issues that we are faced with every day. Maybe my first comment will be on the awareness. I think when we launched this agenda point, it was a matter of concern, trying to figure out how does one approach what is happening in our communities with this loan sharks, and we are experiencing that every day. And as members, I think much of times we are seen to be police officers, we are seen to be psychiatrists and everything. We must respond to these matters. At times you must find yourself standing in front of a loan shark. Unfortunately, we must do those things. So if you are not fully equipped as to how does SASSA look into it, because we must look at it in the same eye, it puts you a bit off. So I think one comment I would like to make also from SASSA, in fact, it's a request, Chair, maybe if we can work together into the future in trying to get more awareness programs into our communities, because I think at times our people don't know their rights on their cards, and like it's you are entitled to it, whether a person can't keep your card for forever. One also, as I said, we are coming from communities. One also observes new tendencies. For example, I would say when I get cases like this, like I would go to my SASSA office and take the card, but then there's this new trend of the loan sharks making other cards. Like for example, FNB, I heard now that you can get paid straight into your account, a chairperson. You don't need to get paid from a SASSA card. Then now that limits SASSA to interact, according to my view. Maybe if we also should look into that, how SASSA can start looking into it and finding ways of, I don't know, doing what, but it's a new trend now that they are leaving the SASSA cards and going into FNB, Capitec, whatever it is, then it limits the years. So it's a bit of a worry. It's a comment I wanted to bring forward, the awareness and looking into this new changing card. I think the chairperson already raised the matter, because I wanted to know from the slides that was shown there, if it was for the province. In future, one would also want to see like each region, how is it affected by what's happening. I couldn't help also noticing from 2012 up to 2022, the cases have reduced. I don't know. Does it mean that we are getting there, or what's it actually saying? Because it started on a high note, 2012, 28 cases, and 2020, 21, we are on 2020 and 23. Yeah, so, or is the new approach, or are people not coming to report anymore or such? Maybe if I can get a feeling on that one. My last one will also be on the uniforms. School uniforms will go out to each local office. The slide said 264. Just maybe if I can be clarified. I'm very passionate about rural areas. I'm from the rural area. Beaufort West has one local office, which means it serves Merweville, it serves Nelspruit, it serves Maritzburg, and there's Beaufort West itself, and the local office is one. So that 264, does it mean, is it only for that office? Will it service just Beaufort West, or is it for everybody? If I can just be clarified on that. I know Overberg would have the same situation like what I'm saying now. Yeah, I think for now, let me pause and not take the meeting to myself. Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me. I'm done now. I won't speak again. Thank you.
You won't speak again. You may answer.
I just ask us for help to maybe just to confirm the platforms that she's currently using.
Thank you very much. Honorable Baku Force, please. You must unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. My phone is about to die. My battery is too flat, but I have this question. Actually, I want to ask to the department a follow-up question. The department just said it is struggling to fill posts due to cuts to compensation budget. Yet every year without fail, this department surrenders budget for compensation of employees. Can you therefore tell us where these funded posts? If so, what happened to their budget? Second, what process is followed when decisions for budget adjustment are made? Are managers of different programs consulted? And lastly, have you been consulted regarding budget cuts or adjustment for the upcoming midterm budget process? Are there any cuts to the budget of this program? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Honorable Barkefors, the meeting is recorded as well. We note your two questions. Let us not answer it right now, otherwise the time will run out. And we are busy with the SASSA debate now, and we will. Yeah, thank you. You're muted now. At the next session, we will pay attention to your two questions. I think while there is no other hands, no other questions to be asked, I want to say to SASSA, thank you very much for being here. Enlighten us.
I think there's a question of mine that's not been answered.
A question not being answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the there are any operations that you want to please then contact us directly that we can enforce these operations and basically the law.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr.
There's still one question.
Yes.
One, still another one.
Yes.
Am I too hostile of his start?
Numbers for local officers. It's not hard and fast that we are saying to people, we take these forms, you only take these areas. So they will work with the communities to say, on the rec within the Woven West local office. They've got many areas, they've got down to Lynchburg. And so they're covering a huge area. So what we are saying to them, this is a number that you can utilize. You don't have to utilize 88 at one school. You can spread it over your office. Also, we had this question from our Boland Overberg district as well. They have farm schools where they have 20 children. I do the 20. Yes, you can do the 20 as long as we stay within the budgetary framework. So the district itself, so the district has 3 local offices in that specific areas, Beaufort West, Oudtshoorn, and George office. So if the one office is not using, we're not saying you must, if you cannot, give it to Beaufort West, give it to where this is not confirmed that we need to do that. This is just a guideline that we provide to district managers to manage the budget correctly.
Thank you.
On behalf of the regions.
Before I round off, no further questions to answer. Councillor Frey, I want to close down.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make sure that my question, which was asked by Member Barnes about the decline in cases, I'm not sure if that was answered.
Yes, as indicated, we act only on the reported cases. So the reported cases are less, but also I think the message is out there within the communities. Yes, what we've also found is that you will get your repeat offenders. We will act upon them, they will be processed, but lay low or quiet for a while and then act again, because you must also understand that it's a big source of income for them. They see it as an income, these loan sharks. So they won't just die out, or they will find other ways and means of just standing up again and then just either moving to another town or but the operations will continue. But but it's important to note that we are that is as per reported cases, and it's actually now picking up again. I think maybe also that was the COVID period that there wasn't that much reported cases, but now again it's picking up. Just that call this morning from somewhere in the Boland that we also need to act now very soon.
Yes. On that note, thank you very much. Let me just conclude by saying the loan sharks issue, we understand it's their business, but the police and the security forces will have to deal with them. They also need to act within the framework of law, self-government. The issue with regard to the amended policy, Mrs. Bester, when can we contact your office to come back to us regarding that one? Okay, a time frame for that? More. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Sorry, I pushed it a little bit there. Wonderful. You can forward them out to the administration. Yeah. There's a reason why I'm asking, you know, that whole issue of asking these community-based questions and stuff like that, for us is very important, because the poorest of the poor are suffering. They need the necessary assistance. They ask us the necessary questions. Many a times we have the answers. Many a times we don't have the answers. And that is the reason why we normally call you guys in to come and present, so that we can familiarize ourselves with regard to what's happening. Before people contact you, or people do contact you and that sort of thing, but they also contact the local councillors and the local members of parliament. And they ask us to come and speak at gatherings. So we need the information to equip ourselves how to respond to the questions and outcries of the public out there. So, I mean, you as servants of the state and of the public, I think you understand that. Yeah. So on that important note, let me say to you, thank you very much. We're half an hour over our time, or on a couple of minutes. Yeah, 25 past. Thank you for sitting patiently and that sort of thing. And thank you for the manner in which you answered the questions. It's appreciated. Doctor, you as well. Thank you. You and your team. Also the manner in which you answered your questions as well. It's commendable. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. There's coffee, there's something to eat outside. I don't see Windvogel, Honorable Windvogel. No. Look, Honorable Wendy, it was a bad day for the standing committee meeting after the memorial. I think you can pick it up, I pick it up and that sort of thing. But it was a wonderful session. I did ask for the department specifically to come back to us. I just feel we didn't do justice to the social issues with regard to old age homes and things like that. You heard me saying that.
Yeah.
And that will happen. And I think SARS's information was just as very important. And I think a very firm resolution is for Mrs. Bester and the team to come back to us with regard to that amended policy framework and that sort of thing. And that for me is very important. And I like the direction SASA going into with regard to even provision of school uniforms and things like that. It will not resolve the plight of people that can't afford uniforms and that sort of thing, but it will bring some relief for some of the scholars, if I can put it to you like that. And some other issues will emanating from our next session with the department. And I made a list. You heard my comments in that regard. I think I mentioned 5, 6 issues, areas of concern we still need to pay attention to, but that can wait for the next department session to the committee within the next 15 to 20 plus minus days. If we can leave it at that, I will be very, very happy, but maybe you have some other issues you want to raise pertaining to recommendations.
Chairperson, I am more than happy with your approach. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Honourable Member, for waiting online for us. I still have Member Buns here with me and Member Fry is also with me and they all agree. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.